Okay, so we're going to put this Moose Utility armored plates for the footwells on a 2020 Yamaha Wolverine X4. I've got the plates laid out here on the floor along with the hardware kit. Just let you know this is made in Russia. So some of the welds look kind of rough, but you know what? They should hold pretty good. Probably made by some guy in the backwoods of Russia with a stick welder, welding up with some aluminum here, if that's even possible. So what you'll need is a 4mm Allen wrench or hex wrench, 13mm wrench or socket, and this is a 10mm. That shouldn't surprise you. Almost everything needs a 10mm. What you get the 4 plate or the 2 plates with 2 brackets, and the hardware kit, and the instructions. Instructions do not really have much writing. They show you the parts list. I went ahead and sorted all my items out into little piles over here. And then from there on, it kind of just goes by pictures and numbers telling you what parts to use. So I'm going to go through this as quick as I can and just kind of show you along the way what we do. So the first thing we're going to do is get this jacked up and take the front wheels off. You can probably do it without taking the wheels off, but I imagine just by looking at it, it's going to be much easier fitting those plates in and getting to the nuts and bolts that you need to put into place. So let's get this jacked up and get the wheels off. All right, we got the wheels off, and the first step is on the passenger side. We're going to grab this bracket right here, this little piece right here that's threaded, one of these larger hex nuts, and a washer. Let's go put that on. All right, step 1. I believe you have to take this plastic panel off, and you also need to put these we'll call them mud guards or extended fenders, whatever you want to call those. Those have to come off as well. And then those plates are going to come all the way up to these top holes, or those top bolts, and then go down the bottom. So I'm curious when this comes off how it's going to fit in there, if we're going to lose any perhaps mud protection where this covers up and keeps mud from going in there. So anyway, let's take that off. It's going to be a little more involved than I thought. Okay, I got those panels off, or that panel and we'll call it the kick guard. I don't know. I'll call it 100 different things for the videos over. This area was caked with mud, so I've cleaned that off a little bit. Probably should wash it off. I'm not going to do that because it's just going to get muddy again, but I did clean it off and kind of wipe it down. So next, we're going to put that plate in place and then start fastening up all the hardware. All right, we're going to test fit this first. I'm using these 2 bolts from the top that hold the floorboard in as a guide. Push that up in there. That lines up pretty good. Now there's also a filler panel, metal filler panel. Got it right here. Reach across in front of you. This panel guards your coolant tank. That bolts in here. And the instructions don't tell you when to put this on, but I'm going to go ahead and take both of these back out of the machine, bolt this panel to the bit larger panel, and then we'll come in and put it back in. And I can tell right now I'm going to have to take those bolts out that hold the coolant reservoir, and then we're going to reuse those probably. Either we'll reuse them or maybe use longer bolts that are included in the kit and come back through. So I'm going to take these out, take this panel, or excuse me, take the coolant reservoir loose, then bolt this panel to the larger panel and come back in and put it in as an assembly. All right, when you're putting this bracket on here, and this is the coolant tank reservoir guard, when you're putting it on here, pay attention to the instructions here. It shows the number 8 bolts. Those are not your normal M6 bolts with Allen head. Those are the nuts, or the bolts with the square on it. I don't know the term there, but and it's just a domed head there. But the square piece there goes through these holes and keeps it from spinning. And I'll think of the name of these as soon as I stop the camera. But so we'll put these through the back. No washer needed on the back side. And then we'll come through with this piece. Maybe that won't fall out. We'll put 2 of those in. We'll come through with this coolant reservoir guard, put it on there, and then have a washer and a nut to tighten that down. Okay, so I've got these bolts out of the coolant reservoir. I'm going to slide this in. I bolted these on, but I didn't leave them extremely tight because I want to go ahead and test fit. They're designed to have a little bit of up, down, left, right movement. So I'm going to try to get them lined up with these bolt holes up here where the coolant reservoir goes to tighten them down. So it looks like I need to mount this with it all the way down. Be careful, I'm hitting, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm hitting the nut for the lower control arm. And I think that's going to be all the way down, almost all the way over. It's all the way down, all the way over for my machine. We're also going to need to take these two 10mm bolts out as well, because what we're going to do, these don't have enough material sticking out the side to put nuts on, which is what I thought we'd do. I mean, you can put a nut on there, but by the time you put a washer on, there's not going to be enough threads there. So we're actually going to replace those with two of the M6 25mm screws. So we'll take those out, and you take those out from inside on the passenger floorboard. Okay, so what's interesting here is the instructions show you to take an M6 25mm bolt with a washer to go through the plate, which I don't have it up here now, but to go through the plate to the inside. And then on the inside, it asks you to take a washer and another 10mm nut on the inside. I don't like that idea because that puts the nut or the longer part of the bolt on the inside at your feet. Not that that's going to bother you. I'm actually going to leave these metal clips in place, run the M6 bolt through those to hold the floor tight, and then I'm going to put a nut on the outside to hold the metal plate or aluminum plate in place. All right, I've got those 25mm bolts run through there. Let's get the plate in here. I've got the other piece. Well, it's upside down. Turn this around. We've got this other piece inner guard bolted on there. I'm gonna come on in here. I found if you put the bottom around the lower control arm nut, it's easier to get in there. Now we can just hang this up on these two bolts, and that will allow us to put the rest of our hardware on. So I'm going to start up here, the two washers, 10mm nuts, get these hand tight, and then I'm going to move on doing the other hardware. So the 25mm bolts go at the top, and then 20mm bolts go at the bottom, and I think there's going to be three of those, two at the very bottom and then one over here that goes into the factory screw where that plastic guard was. Now the only problem I think you can see here is it's going to leave an opening here where the plastic guard covered before, and I think that's going to allow water maybe to splash inside. So I've seen where some people have modified their plastic guards. Let's make sure I've got this right. Have modified these plastic guards to fit back on. You have to cut off, since this is rounded to go around the frame, you have to flatten this out and do a little bit of modification on those panels. I may do that. I'm not going to do it this time. I may come back and do that later because that will provide splash protection, and I think it looks better as well. So I'm going to finish tightening these up, and we'll get the other three 20mm M6 bolts to put in. Okay, for the bottom, we're going to use the two holes. I believe it was the outer holes, or these elongated holes that were used for the factory plastic guard that went there. They're already threaded, and so these will just go right in. What I'm going to do is take some compressed air and blow those out first. And again, we're using an M6 20mm bolt with a washer. Just run those in with my fingers temporarily. And on mine, it's the two elongated holes. There's several holes across the bottom. There's 5 holes total. But the two that are elongated top to bottom are the two that have the threaded inserts behind it. And then the last one, see if you can see that. Yep, will go right here into the factory mount. Okay, and that one is the most difficult, but I had to push pretty good on there to get that started, and I believe that's the one I'll tighten down first. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna come back and tighten all of these down, and then the last thing we'll do is put the bolts in up there for that reservoir bottle. or the coolant reservoir guard, it shows you to use two nuts here, or excuse me, two bolts. But it doesn't tell you, which from the parts list, that would be. And that's because they don't include them. So you just have to assume what bolts are they telling you to use. And the bolts that came out of the coolant reservoir are these bolts here. Those should look familiar. They're designed not to crush the plastic housing of the reservoir when you put those in. And there's just enough threads there, or just a little bit more than enough threads there to go into the metal. Well, with that new guard in place, the thickness of that metal doesn't give you many threads to contact. So what I used, as you can see them there in the background, but I used two of the factory Yamaha bolts that came out of this floorboard. I think it may have been the two that were up here. As you can see, they're longer than the factory bolts that hold in that reservoir. And you don't have to worry about them crushing the plastic because you have this entire section of metal here pushing against the plastic. So it's not like these longer bolts are going to try to pull through the plastic. Plus, they do have a washer on them. But that's what I use. That's what I would recommend you use as well. They look like they work great. Everything's tightened up on this side. That plastic, you hear the plastic rattling underneath. But that looks pretty good. It feels solid. It does leave that metal frame section exposed, whereas before it was covered with plastic. Same with that hole up underneath. But I think that's going to be okay. And the other negative that I saw was on the inside of the machine. I now have a hole right there in the passenger floorboard, whereas before I had a bolt through there. And then there's the two factory holes that you use at the top to hold that in. Now, this farthest bolt on the inside there, you almost, if you're doing it by yourself, it may be easier if you take that door off. Otherwise, you have to stretch your arm pretty far inside there and then reach around here and come in and grab that inside bolt as well. All right, so that's pretty much it for the passenger side. We're going to move over to the driver's side. Now, on the driver's side, I've already taken our plastic off. The plastic inner fender, if you want to call it that, the plastic guard that came down here, and I put this little bracket in here. It's not tight yet. I'm going to test fit my panel, see where it needs to go. And then because it does spin left and right, and it slides left and right as well. So I want to try to get that where it needs to be and tighten that down. I will warn you, the instructions show to put that on the passenger side. That does not go on the passenger side. You'll realize if you do put it there like I did initially, you realize when you hold that passenger kick guard in place, there's no hole to actually bolt to that in the passenger kick guard. So that does go on the driver's side. So don't be confused by that. It is in the instructions for the passenger side, but it does go on the driver's side. So this side's pretty much going to be the same. I've already removed the floor panel, as I said, removing those screws. I did not take these out yet. I'm going to take those out. Pretty much repeat the same process we did on the other side. And I believe this one has a guard similar to the coolant reservoir on the passenger side, except it's going to be to guard this brake master cylinder. At least that's what I assume without putting it in yet. So let's do this side. Okay, on the driver's side, this is a guard for the brake master cylinder or the brake reservoir. I've already checked none of these three holes on here that bolt to the kick panel plate don't bolt to anything on the machine. So it's not like we need to leave these loose to make sure they line up. Just sit this over. I did check, does it go on the inside or the outside? You can probably do it either way, but it fits best on the outside. I believe the instructions, which are very hard to tell, show it on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and get that bolted up. These are using 3 of the 20 millimeter bolts with washers on the front and rear and the 10 millimeter nylock nut on the back side. So I'm going to do that off the machine, and then we'll put this whole assembly on the machine. Okay, we got it all on. Again, use the M6 25 millimeter bolts at the top. I ran those in from the inside through the original plastic clips. Put the 10 millimeter nuts on the outside of each. Down below, you have 2 down below and 1 here on the side. Those are 20 millimeter M6 bolts. Again, 20 millimeter M6 bolts to hold that brake cylinder or master cylinder guard on. And then down in the corner where that little bracket was, that's an M8 bolt. There's only 2 of them. One holds the bracket on, one holds the inner fender guard or kick wheel guard to the bracket. All right, coming back at the end of the video, I found something. The 2 screws or the 2 bolts, sorry for the bright light there, that are used to hold that coolant reservoir on. You'll need those. These are not in the instructions. If you come to each fender where you took those plastic guards off, right up in the top, right there, you can see that there's a missing screw. You need a screw or a bolt to go in because that is loose. So use one of those that has that standoff on it to keep from crushing the plastic, and put one in each side. I'm going to put one here on the passenger side. These have 10mm heads, just like pretty much everything on this machine. Obviously not everything, but a lot. And then we're going to put one here on the driver's side as well. So do that. Don't forget to do that. That's not in the instructions. Instructions do a decent job. Again, they're picture instructions. And I'll include a copy of those here in the end, at the end of the video. And that is cross-threading, so I'll get my wrench and tighten that up. But don't forget to put those in, or you'll end up finding out going down the trail or something that the fenders are flapping. I noticed that when I was putting the wheels back on. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Stay here for the end. I'll throw in some pictures of the instructions. It's only 7 pages, and it's all pictures. So those are coming up now. Thanks, and God bless.